Welcome back at WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We have merged the streams around here after, 22 and a half years of doing sports radio to include more conversations around your world, but this will not be one of them. On the backside of the Ravens bye week and a less than illustrious second half in Philadelphia last week, although I did bring home some fantastic pretzels from that trip last week that my wife finally threw away stale. There's always a couple too many they give you. Garrett Downing is here from Ravens.com to talk all things Pittsburgh week on the backside of a bye. And, a lot of things in life change, plagues, mask, but undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers, first place Pittsburgh Steelers. Garrett, I'm over it. We got to go beat these guys this week, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's oftentimes, especially the last couple of years, I feel like a narrative around this game has been, is the Ravens-Steelers rivalry losing some luster? I think that was particularly a pressing question last year when Ben Roethlisberger wasn't playing in that game. And then week 17, obviously it was a game that didn't have any playoff implications for the Ravens. So I feel like that was
– For the record, my wife said he looked fat and old that day. And I said, hey, whoa, wait till next year. You know what I mean? Because it's always that way, right? Like – he comes back more time than the guy from Halloween, I think, right?
It's kind of like him in the pocket. You feel like you've got him sacked, and he just keeps pump faking and rolls out and breaks his tackle and heaves it downfield. It's just kind of his whole persona. So, yeah, I mean, he looks great. Calais Campbell said this week that he thinks that Ben Roethlisberger is playing as well as he has his entire career. So that tells you what the Ravens think of Ben, the way that he's looked through the first 7 weeks this season. So it's going to be tough. I mean, they've got a scary good defense. I just said Ben's playing at a really high level. So this is a game where I think it's, we'll get a real measuring stick, whatever kind of adjective or description you want to put on this game could fit. There's a lot of different ways you could describe it, but it's going to be a really important game for this team.
Garrett, I've been around this thing for 4 or 5 generations of players now. You're in your second or third generation, depending on how far back you'd look at it. And this particular group, the Lamar group, I would say, the modern, this look, didn't have a whole lot of games like they had against Philadelphia. I mean, there's been huge blowouts and Lamar, turning the offense, and we're bitching online in the third quarter about why Lamar's not out. There's been a whole lot more of that than hurt feelings on Monday after tough losses, or our kicker misses a kick, or our quarterback throws 3 picks and we lose big. None of that's happened in the Lamar era. So this Philadelphia game was a little bit of an outlier. And, I didn't talk to Coach last week, and I guess he has to feign anger at the end of all of that. But I sort of looked at that, and I will look at that until further notice, as not a bad thing to have Carson Wentz, coming at you like the gourd bull at the end and giving you a little scare in the pants, because the Ravens haven't had a lot of that. I found it to be a little refreshing wake-up call, I would think, from a coaching perspective, as to what's possible when you take the foot off the gas.
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, it's funny. We go into the bye week at 5-1, and I never felt so much kind of consternation is the word that I use.
It's not good enough. It's not good enough. They didn't win by enough.
Right. And you're sitting at 5-1, and how many years would you be thrilled to be at that point through the first 6 games? So
every year, I'd be thrilled to be 5-1.
Yeah, every year. And so I think that there is a comparison to last year, and an expectation to just do what the Ravens did last year and say, well, look at what you did on Monday Night Football against the Rams. That was fun. Just do that every week. Can we just have that?
It was fun, though. That was a great night.
It was awesome. And so I understand why there's that desire, why people want that. Obviously, everyone wants that, right? I mean, no question.
Had a hell of a drive down to 5 after that one. That was
I mean, I'm sure it was great. I'm sure, everyone loved that game. So, but yeah, I do think there's some merit to the thought that the Ravens playing a tough game, there can be value there. I mean, that was certainly a talking point after the game, that could be something that they build on when they get to the playoffs or late in the season, that you got to win tight games. You got to hold off a team. I just felt like that game was a weird one where some weird things happened. There were some penalties that went against them. The Ravens were up, and you never really felt like it was close. And all of a sudden, they have a 2-point conversion to tie the game. You're like, what happened? What's going on in this game?
And how can we make sure it never happens again? Which I guess then goes to the awakening of the organization, right?
Right. And I think that, like, players and coaches felt like they could have played better. They need to finish that game. There's no question. Like, I don't think that players and coaches came out of that game feeling like, man, that was the best game we could have possibly played. I thought Sean Elliott actually after the game was pretty upfront about that. He's like, a lot of teams would be happy to be 5-1, but we got to play better. And and then the Ravens go out and they're trying to upgrade the roster. They go in to make a trade for a Pro Bowl player like Yannick Ngakoue and add him to a defense that was already the best defense in the league. So they're clearly not sitting on their hands or content. They're trying to find ways to get better, and they did that over the bye week.
You can always follow Garrett Downing, all things podcast and Ravens Report and Ravens.com. I don't have him on as often as I should. I've been doing some football around here. We're going to have plenty of Steelers coverage and election coverage and all sorts of things. Martin O'Malley, John Sarbane's going to join us this week, along with former Baltimore County Executive Don Moeller. Luke will be at the game. I'll be sitting at home eating some Royal Farms fried chicken. Tailgates. Never a good idea to eat the chicken during the game, especially if you're trying to tweet. But that's just me. Let's get fingers, maybe
greasy fingers.
Well, right, and then Western fries as well. I mean, I'm down with all of that. But for me, with where the team is right now and the organization and really the sport, with getting to this point, that Eric would make a move of the magnitude that he did last week. The NFL's more fun now because of this, right? And I think, and I go back to my childhood with baseball trades and where the Orioles would be in August and the trading deadline and all of that stuff. But the fact that the Domata Pekka's come and the fact that the Marcus Peters can be signed in the middle of a year, or you can go out on the street and find a Josh Bynes or an LJ Fort in a deal, that it's never over. And for that, I always think the Ravens have a competitive advantage that's tremendous against the market, right? I mean, only a handful of teams are that good at doing this, that when you find yourself 5-1 and you want a pass rusher, you find a way to make these things happen. And you use that arsenal of draft picks as something you have in your golf club for when you are 5-1 and you have a need.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of things there to unpack. First of all, when you talk about the NFL being more fun as a result of that, I completely agree. Like, how many years, if you were to go back, say 5 or 6 years, 10 years, I felt like the trade deadline would come and go, and there would be a little bit of hype and bluster around what it's going to be. And then all of a sudden 4 o'clock on the deadline day would hit and nothing would really happen. You would just kind of say, another year, a lot of talk, no action. That's not the case, not anymore. And that's not the case for the Ravens. That's not the case for the league overall. Like, look at some of the trades that have taken place around the NFL over the last year. You're having marquee players move around: DeAndre Hopkins, Jamal Adams, Calais Campbell, Marcus Peters. And for the Ravens to go out and be in the middle of 3 mega trades, really. Marcus Peters, perennial Pro Bowler; Calais Campbell, perennial Pro Bowler; Yannick Ngakoue, multiple Pro Bowls, I think. This is a guy who can come in here and be a difference maker. He's a franchise tag player, 5 sacks this year. So to be in the middle of those moves speaks to what you're talking about, which is the Ravens have a great front office, and they're always looking for ways to have an edge. Like, I remember when Eric took over the job as general manager, one of the things that he talked about is that they're going to try to use every avenue to upgrade the team. They're going to be creative. They're going to try, and they've done it over the course of time. They've done it with compensatory picks, as an example. And so they're going to try to find any way to get a little bit of an edge and be creative in doing so. And I think that these trades are great examples of it. And the other thing that's really strikes me is those are Pro Bowl players that the Ravens have added. They're not giving up first, second round picks, to acquire them. They're giving up, this is reportedly a 3rd and a 5th for Ngakoue. Last year, same deal with Marcus Peters. I mean, they're giving up lower round picks. I know Hayden Hurst was part of the trade in Calais Campbell, but that's a player, not a pick. So anyway, I just think the Ravens front office deserves a ton of credit for their ability to get creative and try to add these players.
Well, let's go make it more fun for all of us the rest of the way. Garrett Downing joining us here from Ravens.com, talking all things Ravens on the eve of the Pittsburgh Steelers coming up. We're going to have some fans down at this game. I wrote my piece going down to Houston in an empty stadium and then down in D.C., sitting in the corner where I can't see the down and distance marker as to what these games are in person and not really being influenced as a home. There is no home advantage, right? But this game in particular, and what the Steelers and all of us having last weekend to sit on the couch and watch them play the Titans, who were better than we were 7-8 months ago, and wondering what this looks like for 2020. This is a very good Pittsburgh Steelers team. And as much as we talk Browns all last offseason and Joe Burrow and Lamar and MVP and all that, the Steelers just sort of go under the radar throughout all of this. And I don't sit and hate on them every week like maybe I once did back in the day. I've probably seen 3 of their games this year. Sometimes we're playing at the same time. But watching them play on Sunday, especially in the early going, it was formidable. And this division is formidable right now with what the Browns have done.
Yeah, I think the division is more than formidable. I mean, the Steelers right now, the only undefeated team in football. The Browns are a team that's clearly playing well. Baker Mayfield's coming off one of his best games. He threw 5 touchdowns. And even the Cincinnati Bengals, I know they don't have a good record, but if you watch Joe Burrow, you know that they're going to be a team that's in every game. And they're going to be a tough out, over the course of the year. They're going to surprise some people, and Joe Burrow's just going to keep getting better. So, yeah, the division, I mean, I know the NFC West is a great division too. So I don't know which one you would rank as the best division of football, but AFC North is right there. And so the Steelers, yeah, I mean, I was, as long as they have Ben Roethlisberger and Mike Tomlin and some of those playmakers on the offensive side of the ball, I've never, and gosh, a defense led by TJ Watt and Minkah Fitzpatrick and Devin Bush before he went down, like they've got playmakers up and down that roster. So I was never feeling like the Steelers are a concern of the past. Like I was never on that bandwagon. I think some Ravens fans were, or the focus kind of starts.
I just want to be. I want them to go away for a little while, but not really. I don't want them to stink. I kind of like these big games. We got to have big games against somebody. Why not them, right?
Yeah, and I think that some of the focus has shifted. It shifts to the Kansas City Chiefs, and it shifts to the New England Patriots, and it shifts now to the Tennessee Titans.
I think the Buffalo Bills are going to be formidable too. It's that kid can play.
Yeah, but Bills are good. I mean, the AFC is incredibly tough. I mean, you look through the top 6 teams, it's a tough road, and it's not going to be like last year where the Ravens were sitting there 14-2 and they're week 17 resting guys because it was already wrapped up. I think this thing's going to go down to the wire, and there's a lot of good teams in the AFC. I think the AFC is so much better when I look at it, top to bottom, than what there is in the NFC. So. Yeah, I mean, this game is going to be really interesting. I was really interested to see that the Ravens opened as 5.5-point favorites over the Steelers, given the fact that what you were talking about in terms of home field advantage. I know there's going to be some fans, but it's not like there's 70,000.
You know what, man? There's a part
fans.
of this. If we have to go out to Kansas City in January, it just means I'm going to get good barbecue. But it's not going to mean there's going to be 72,000 arrow. It's not going to be that. And I think for that, the tournament's going to be a little different in January.
Yeah,
and if they bubble, they might wind up bubbling. I mean, literally, who knows, right?
Yeah, there's a million different possibilities in terms of who knows what January's.
But the one possibility is Lamar's not going to have to go out to Arrowhead on an 8-degree day and deal with 70,000 people. I don't see that. That's not going to happen.
Right, yeah, and vice versa is true also, which is that Patrick
we can still get the advantage. I mean, they've lost amazingly. It's amazing they lost, right?
Yeah, to the Raiders. I know.
Yeah,
it was wild.
I was watching them the other day. I'm like, how the hell did they lose? Garrett, for you with this offense and with Marshall Yanda being gone and to your point, Hayden Hurst, you already brought that up, and where the receivers are, who's going to be the feature back, how much they're going to run Lamar, what Lamar's health looked like in the aftermath of the bumper cars with the Redskins that day, that a couple weeks off probably did this team a lot of good. And we all want shades of that crazy offense last year and winning 45-6 every week. That was unrealistic last year. Luke and I talk about this all the time as to what you want it to be, but you want it to be better than what we've seen. And it can be.
Yeah, it can be. I think that's the main thing. It can be better. I'll be really interested to see how the offense looks after the bye week, because basically what coaches do during the bye week, they go back and they watch every game and every play and they assess what's going well, what's not going well, what needs to change. They'll make some tweaks and changes to rotations, to lineups, to scheme, to all of that. And I'll be curious to see if there's any noticeable difference when they get out there against the Steelers. Obviously, as you know, Nestor, the Ravens have a great track record of performing well coming out of bye weeks. I think it's 10-2 under John Harbaugh. So they've historically played really well on these bye week games, which bodes well for them to face the Steelers in this matchup. And then the other thing, too, is just like, as they've assessed where they stand and what can change and what they need to do better, like, what is there a difference of rotation in terms of receivers or the running backs? Like, what does that group look like? Mark Ingram's dealing with the ankle. Is he ready to go? So I think that the first 6 games, there was a little bit of kind of feeling things out and weird year and no preseason. And in the second half of the year, I would expect to see a bit more refined offense. Hopefully, obviously what Ravens fans hope is similar to what the Ravens saw in the second half of last year. I mean, this is the point last year where things changed. This is a Seattle game. This is the turning point where all of a sudden they put a rocket launcher on their back and they were off to the races at this point last year. Who's to say that couldn't happen this year? So, and again, like you were just saying, they're sitting here at 5-1, so they're in good position. I just think the eye test hasn't looked the exact same as it did last year, and this will be a chance to start to change that narrative a little bit if they're able to go out there and get a win on Sunday.
Well, last year, like, everything was perfect. This year, like, some stuff went wrong.
Right.
We have to expect
and it's that simple, right? And it's not even going like that wrong. Like, yeah, the Kansas City game did, but in the second half of the Eagles game it became way closer than you expect. But I'm just looking here at the schedule: 27-3 against the Bengals, 31-17 against Washington, 38-6 against the Browns, 33-16 against the Texans. I mean, those are all blowout victories. So you've got 1 loss, 4 blowouts, and then 1 close game, which you really were leading for by a wide margin for.
Hey, man, I see you looking at the schedule, and I got one here too. And I look at Indianapolis and New England, and I look at Dallas as completely different games than maybe I looked at those games 3, 4, 5 months ago. And the same would be said even down the line. I mean, look at the Giants, and whatever that's going to be at the end of the year. That the schedule is a little lighter than maybe it felt earlier, that getting to this point. I remember when Houston looked tough, right? I mean, all those early games look like, wow, maybe we'll be 4-2 or something like that. Maybe it'll be a different kind of year. They can still easily go 14-2 this year. And I know that's a crazy thing to say.
No, I agree with you.
This is the game I'm worried the most about this week, because this is a measurement game. They don't get a lot of those. They might get one of those Raiders kind of games where they lose, they shouldn't, to a team they shouldn't lose to, and that doesn't really measure you. It doesn't take anything away from the Chiefs. But for me, you have to beat a couple of these good teams to feel really good about yourself.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the next thing for Lamar this year and as a whole.
A year ago this week it was beating Seattle, right? And that changed. That really changed everything about how you felt about them.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, then they put the rocket launcher on and they were off to the races at that point. So let's just say they go out there and they beat the Steelers this week. Could they roll off, 8 straight wins? Sure. Absolutely. I can totally see it. And I think we're going to learn a lot about this team in November. In November, you got the Steelers twice, the Titans. I know the Patriots don't look good right now, but they are the Patriots, and I'm not writing them off quite yet.
That Thanksgiving night's going to be really weird, right? I mean, with so much at stake in a game with 3 days rest and, all of that going on.
Yeah, and you got the Colts. So you got 4 games against 3 teams who are, would be in the playoffs right now. Then the other game against the non-playoff team is against the Patriots. So we're going to learn a lot about this team in November and get a sense of how good this team really is.
Well, they're resting up right now, getting ready for the action. Garrett Downing's been covering the Ravens for a long time. You can find him out on Twitter and social and Ravens.com, Ravens Report, podcast. You got a podcast network and all that stuff. And, for you, the weirdness of all of this, and, I text Coach this morning. This is weird, man. Like, the fact that I'm not around players, there's no events, there's no going out, there's no pre-locker room, post-locker room Wednesday, knowing players. I've not met Patrick Queen yet. I'm watching these guys in Raven uniforms make plays, and I don't know them or what they look like. It's straight. What tier are you? When's the last time you elbow bumped a player?
Yeah, I'm 2. So I got to walk around. I'm in the building right now.
What does that mean? That means you don't touch players, right?
Yeah, well, you can basically, everything's at a distance. You got your mask here. You maintain a distance everywhere. You got these little beepers that you walk around with. If you get too close, they start beeping and flashing.
Is that like when you're driving to get out of the lane, checking text or whatever? Like,
yeah, or like you got the things on the mirrors.
Does it go off, and is it Dick Cass saying you're 6 feet away?
You just separate. It is. I mean, everything here is weird. You walk in the cafeteria and tables are spaced out, and there's single seat tables, and it's just different. Everything about this year is different, and obviously we all know why that is. But it doesn't change the fact that it's a weird atmosphere on game days, day to day in the building. Everything is different from what we're all accustomed to.
Look, I don't kiss the league's ass without you meaning it, because I criticize the league as well. That was Art Modell told me that would work out well for me 30 years later if I did it that way. But I'll say this, we went through the waves of should they play, shouldn't they play, is it good, is it bad, is it safe, all of that. Should we let fans in is where we are this week, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll just say this for the league in general, and all the leagues, as baseball's wrapping up this week, and the NBA and the NHL did their bubbles. We're all sports fans here. College is trying to play. High schools are playing in certain places. But the NFL, the product, and especially with the Ravens, that week to week, if you just showed up and watched it on TV, you wouldn't know a plague's going on for the most part, what the Titans went through and some other teams. But for the most part, it's been astonishing how seamless the football has been, how professional. That's the word I would use, just professional. It's been a very, very viable professional, maybe more so than in some years, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think that we all were kind of wondering, no preseason, obviously, again, unique year, everything's different. What does it look like? And I completely agree. I've been totally impressed with just the level of play, the level of competition. It's not like you're seeing games that are filled with penalties and sloppiness. When you watch these games, they look like NFL football games. And it feels like an NFL football game, and you're impressed and you're enjoying it. And I think that there's still a huge appetite for it, and we're seeing that in ratings and everything else. And so it looks like NFL football, and that's a good thing. And even if you got all these weird things leading up to it, once the guys get out there in the field and play, there's still these professionals who are able to compete at an incredibly high level and get themselves ready to perform. I mean, like what the Titans went through, where they're out of the building for 2 weeks and they miss a game and then they come back and they win. To me, that was an indication of just the level of professionalism that these players have as a whole, to be able to go out there. Like once they actually start to play, they recognize that this is what they're paid to do. And the product is still really, really good, even with all the unique circumstances around the league this year.
I think we saw that over the weekend. The games are really good. The Sunday night, I mean, just the competition level and how good Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson and just these young quarterbacks and and just how it's the only thing normal going on right now, right? Literally.
Right. Like when you watch the Titans and the Steelers game on Sunday, it's a bye week for us, but I still spent Sunday watching the games, and you're watching the Titans and the Steelers on Sunday, and it's a great competition, and I enjoyed it. And it was, it was down to the wire.
I went red zone. There were like 5 of those going on at the same time.
Exactly. It's like right around 4:00, and there was just crazy finishes to that game, to the Falcons game, to the Browns-Bengals game. It's just like, this is why NFL football is so popular in our country, and you're seeing it with, like what we saw on Sunday.
So because we're Baltimore positive around here, and I'm mixing things up a little bit, tell everybody where you're from. So because you're a transplant.
Yeah, I'm an Ohio guy. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. I was born in Cleveland, and then before I moved here,
were you Browns or were you Bengals? Which one?
I was
a
Browns fan. I was born in
You
Cleveland.
lost a lot. You suffered. You traded up, dude, big time.
Yeah, exactly. And I lived in Cleveland at the TV station, and worked at the TV station before moving here. So I still got family members who give me a hard time about,
Well, they're wrong. Let them know.
Yeah, exactly. Coming to the dark side, they like to say. But
well, this is what I was going to ask you, because you've been here a decade now.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. What's your favorite thing about Baltimore, being a guy that's not from here? Like, it's one thing to ask a football player who's here 5 minutes to say to Eric Weddle, like, what did you like? Okay, great. But, like, somebody that actually lives here and is here, and you have all these Ohioans, and then I'll probably ask you what you miss the most. Like, is there, like, a sandwich in Columbus that I need to get or something? Because I was stuck in Columbus before, and I didn't like Columbus. I couldn't wait to get the hell out of there. No.
Yeah, I mean, I've lived in the city in Baltimore since 2012, so I've lived there for 8-9 years, and have a great group of friends. I think what I like the most about Baltimore, this area, is the community of it. It's a big city, but it doesn't feel like it.
I treat you like you're from here, even though you're not.
Exactly. And whether it's, social kickball leagues or the ability to walk to bars and restaurants, I just think it's a social community. And, there's a lot of people from different parts of the country who ultimately end up living here. But like I said, it's a big city, doesn't feel like it. And there's really a sense of community and I think pride around, around people who are from here and live here. And there's a sense of pride about that.
I think I'm going to do an Action Bronson take on food in Baltimore. Just take guys like you around and just eat our faces off and drink stuff.
I've been to all of them, Nestor. I've been to all the restaurants. My wife is on top of, she's the ultimate foodie. So when there's a new restaurant that opens up, she's on it. So I would love to do that.
Yeah, well,
you got connections, man. You can get reservations any place in town.
When I found the former Burke's Onion Rings at Roost Chris a couple weeks ago, I knew I was on to my next calling beyond Baltimore. I got to figure Baltimore Positive out before I work on my next calling, but it's going to be framed within there. I mean, there was rock and roll and there was sports. Next thing is like eating, because that's what's important to everybody. That and democracy and freedom. But it's your relatives in Ohio and Luke Jones's friends up in Pennsylvania. You'll figure that out here this week. I'm getting ready for Steelers and Ravens. It's always good to catch up with you, bro. And tell me what you're doing out there, Ravens Report and all the podcasts. I can't keep up with it, but you're the busiest guy out in Owings Mills, not named Harbaugh.
I don't know about that, but yeah, there's a lot going on, Nestor. One thing I would, encourage your viewers and listeners to do is check out the Ravens Podcast Network. We've got The Lounge, which Ryan Mink and I host. We also have What Happened to That Guy.
I've never been a guest on that program. I don't know about that program.
We got to get you. We'll get you, Nestor. Then John.
I've only written a couple of books on the team. Sorry. Look, I don't have time, man. I'm busy over here. I don't know. What day do you tape that? I don't know if I can make that. Maybe
I know.
Next year.
See, that's the thing. You're too big time. I don't know if we could nail you down.
Hey, if I'm on your show, you're going to get what every podcast host has always wanted, a guest that has a good mic. If I'm on your show, at least whatever I say will sound okay.
That's easier said than done, as we've done this and had multiple different interviews. It's not the good mic is not necessarily a guarantee.
There's no doubt. And then when they get I got $1,000 mic, but it's over here,
Yeah, right.
In the room. Right. No, it's a great mic. My mic's great. No,
yeah.
I know what it's like to host a podcast.
You're a professional. Yeah,
well, at least my half is. The other half, whatever the other guy's doing on Zoom is what I'm doing. So, but look, man, I miss all of the sort of camaraderie and the bad pizza. I don't miss all the members of the media, and I know they don't miss me. But there is a point where we're going to get through this and hopefully get back to doing normal things. One of the normal things is talking football with you. So, man, always appreciate the follow of you and the work you and Michelle and Ryan, all you guys are doing over there. All right.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on, Nestor, and we'll catch up and have this conversation face-to-face hopefully soon.
All right. I have a good mic. So does Luke Jones.
Awesome, man.
Garrett Downing. You can follow G. Downing out on Twitter and on Facebook for some people, and mainly The Lounge and Ravens Reports and Ravens.com. Getting ready for Steelers and Ravens. We're talking all sorts of folks this week. You'll find Rod Woodson and Charlie Batch and Ed Bouchette and Luke and I and a whole bunch of people doing sports, but even more than that, getting you ready for the election. Martin O'Malley, John Sarbanes, Ted Venetoulas, all sorts of guests this week. Ron Cassie about the stories that you love about Baltimore and getting ready for the eggnog season over at the Harka. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and streaming all over the world at the all-new WNST.net. We call it Baltimore Positive.